so much. The Brazilian does tend to be able to lap by himself, but clearly he feels like he's struggling. He needs that toe to go fast towards the end of this session.
So here is Gonzalez then, who is looking much more comfortable on that Dynabolt Intact GP Calyx than at any stage in the dry yesterday. We've got a fast quartet here who are currently, in the case of Gonzalez, in the top four. In the case of the trio behind him, looking to try and break their way in. Moreira is currently fifth. Unchu, who's fourth bike of this quartet, is currently sixth. And Ethan Guevara is 10th. Not that that's prevented Guevara from making rapid lap one progress so far in 2025. Admittedly, he jumped the start on his way to doing that in Thailand, but came all the way from 23rd on the grid last time out in Argentina through to the top 10. He was 9th at the end of lap 4 before a barbecued Pirelli rear tyre saw him drop back down the field, and he's already dropped behind Unchu on this lap, so keep your expectations for the former Moto3 champion under control on this particular lap. But Unchu, he is going very quickly, as is Gonzalez, who's potentially threatening our first 2:07 of the weekend.
Yeah, we could be on course to see the fastest Moto2 lap time of the weekend so far from Manu Gonzalez, if he manages to keep this up. Unchu certainly benefiting from the toe of the faster riders just ahead. Joe Roberts also on course to maybe trouble
the top 4 with this lap time coming in as well. So plenty to keep our eyes on. Ya, oke, sahabat Viewpoint semuanya. Selamat malam semuanya. Selamat hari Idul Fitri ya. Mungkin besok kita akan Idul Fitri. Jadi hari ini kita akan nonton sekaligus mumpung masih belum mulai sprint race-nya, ini masih di Moto2 ya, Moto2 Q1. Jadi masih ada waktu beberapa menit untuk menyaksikan live sprint race ya untuk di Amerika. Jadi kita akan tunggu sebentar lagi dan mohon untuk dukungannya buat sahabat-sahabat teman sekalian. Linknya, oke, sebentar ya Kak, linknya Bang Indo senang. Linknya nanti akan saya bagikan sebentar lagi karena belum main ya Bang ya, masih Moto2 di Q1 ya. Sebentar lagi Bang, boleh bantu like-nya Bang dan juga subscribe juga ya Bang ya. Bang Indo senang ya, senang oke. Nanti yang saya bagikan, kita nontonnya di via Meet ya Bang, teman-teman sekalian. Nanti kita nonton di via Meet, kita akan saksikan link untuk Moto2 di MotoGP di sprint race-nya sebentar lagi. Mohon bantuan untuk like juga dan juga subscribe. Linknya akan saya bagikan, kita akan nonton di via Meet ya teman-teman.
We haven't seen anything popping up on our timing screens to indicate that that lap time will be cancelled for the Californian.
Yeah, we have seen some laps cancelled, but his was not among them, as Manu Gonzalez continues his pursuit of the all-time lap record as Guevara goes way off into the distance at the back of the picture. Moreira looked like...
Oke teman-teman, bantu untuk subscribe dan juga like juga teman-teman, mohon bantuannya sebentar ya Bang. Balas dulu. Bantu untuk like dan juga subscribe teman-teman. Izin buat teman-teman sekalian sambil nunggu sahur ya kita ya. Nunggu sahur ya. Nunggu sahur kita nanti akan berbagi link teman-teman. Saya akan buatkan linknya dulu ya. Oke, sebentar. Bantu subscribe dan juga like ya teman-teman ya, sahabat-sahabat Viewpoint, sahabat pointer.
Here then from both Salaj and David Alonso. Alonso has placed himself quite well on track towards the end of this session. I don't think he'll be getting inside the top 4, but
he is. He got into second place as the Moto3 World Champion. Boy, did he pull that out of the bag in the final sector. And has the real David Alonso finally turned up in Moto2? First Q2 appearance for the Colombian.
Yeah, brilliant stuff, and that comes at the consequence of Joe Roberts. So a bit of heartbreak for the home fans here in Austin, Texas. Joe will be starting like David Alonso was with that, and there were some hints of that earlier today, Lewis, when he was 14th in free practice 2. think Elliot York was telling me he saw David being congratulated by his mechanics afterwards. They were really pumped and they felt they'd made a significant step forward. And considering just how many strong riders there were in that session, for Alonso to emerge second is testament to, well, progress that's being made.
There was tons of progress in Argentina too, to be fair, for Alonso.
Teman-teman sekalian bantu subscribe dan juga like.
Ini nanti akan saya bagi di race screen race-nya nanti 20 menit lagi, 15 menit lagi. With the fastest ever lap of Austin on a Moto2 bike. Jürgen Ling's got some instant reaction now with Elliot.
Yeah, Jürgen, fantastic from Manu, a new full-time lap record here in the Moto2 class. Just contrasting days. How was he feeling yesterday in the wet conditions? Struggled a lot, but today feels fantastic, seemingly in the dry. Talk us through his weekend so far.
Ini lagi di kampung guys, jadi
yesterday was a bit tough, we know that we have to improve in the wet,
mumpung satu hari lagi kita mau Idul Fitri ya, merayakan Ramadan. Sebentar lagi kita akan merayakan Idul Fitri, jadi suasananya seperti ini guys. Ya, sahabat-sahabat sekalian, mohon izin bantu juga subscribe dan juga like ya, sahabat-sahabat Bitcoin. Linknya sebentar lagi akan saya bagikan karena belum mulai guys. Nah, ini Q1 buat teman-teman bisa saksikan hasil dari Q1 nya kualifikasi.
He was fifth from Arenas, Moreira and Navarro. Doug Moreira will start 21st, which will be a disappointment for the Brazilian. Ivan Artola 9th from Yumi Sasaki and Colin Vaya, who did lift himself ahead of Ethan Cavara. Darren Binder, who crashed, and Adrian Huertas, who already has a long lap penalty as it is going into tomorrow, and he'll start from the back.
Boleh bantu like dan juga subscribe-nya teman-teman sekalian, dibantu like-nya.
Well, what a difference today makes for Manu Gonzalez. From nowhere yesterday to clear P1 today, the fastest ever Moto2 lap of Kota. Gonzalez tops Q1.
Kita sekali lagi mengimbau akan live di nontonnya di apa ya, ini ya teman-teman sekalian.
And into Q2 we go in Moto2. Well, welcome back to Austin, Texas, as you look live at the circuit of the Americas, as we are now within 1 hour of lights out in the third sprint of the season in MotoGP.
Masak buat sahur dan merayakan ibadah puasa. Masih sempat banyak waktu guys untuk sahur.
As the MotoGP field
ya di Amerika. Nah, sekali lagi ini adalah seri di musim ketiga guys. Seri musim ketiga ini akan dilaksanakan di Amerika ya, di Amerika, dan kembali untuk Jorge Martin tidak akan ikut seri balapan di seri ketiga ini ya, karena masih cedera, dan nanti akan lihat siapa yang akan menambah poin-poin untuk di sprint race, karena sprint race ini penting teman-teman, yaitu untuk menambah poin ya, gelar juara dunia di musim 2025 nantinya ini akan menambah poin, jarak, memperbanyak poin di kelas MotoGP, yaitu poinnya di gelar juara dunianya guys. Jadi itu poinnya ya. Bantu teman-teman sekalian yang sudah menonton, bantu untuk subscribe dan juga like juga ya teman-teman sekalian. Oke, sambil menunggu masih ada 15 menitan lagi, dan boleh sambil masak-masak buat kopi sebelum sebelum puasa guys. Jadi bisa sebelum menunaikan ibadah puasa. Boleh komen aja guys, komen-komen dari mana. Bang Indo Senang, dari mana Bang Indo Senang? Salam dari Medan. Bang Indo, apa kabar? Lagi di mana? Ya, ini akan kita saksikan kembali di Q2 di Moto2 teman-teman. Jadi masih Q2 di kelas Moto2 guys. mungkin masih ada waktu untuk apa ya? Masih ada waktu untuk menunggu sprint race-nya, guys. Ya, bantu subscribe dan juga like teman-teman sekalian. Ini masih ada waktu untuk sprint race-nya.
Above the competition so far this weekend, but this is when it really starts to count, and he'll be looking for a second front row start on the bounce, potentially a 7th pole position of his career as well. Last one coming at Motegi last year.
So Manu Gonzalez, who is now officially the fastest rider we've ever seen in Moto2 here in Austin. That lap time came just a few short moments ago, back in qualifying 1. Gonzalez sitting at 2:07.355 to top that session by over 0.8 of a second, and he will surely figure in this battle for pole position. What about Tony Arbolino? Is he going to be in the mix somewhere? Certainly the evidence of this weekend so far in all conditions is that he will be. Second quickest in the rain-affected practice session yesterday, but up inside the top 5 so far this weekend, showing that when he comes to a circuit that he's clearly comfortable at, and the Boscoscuro working well here in Austin, Arbolino back to something approaching his best.
Yeah, most certainly. We were seeing a few flashes of the old Tony Arbolino in Argentina before arm pump issues in his right forearm struck him towards the end. Resulted in him falling down the order and finishing
ya guys, dan ingat besok pagi dini hari jam 3 dini hari itu sesi utama di MotoGP akan kita saksikan. Boleh pantengin di channel ini kembali. Kita akan saksikan live secara nobar sama-sama di Amerika Serikat. Oke guys, yang masih Moto2 guys, masih ada waktu nih, masih lama lagi nih, boleh buat kopi dulu atau apa gitu ya. Ya, masih ada waktu untuk kelas Moto2.
So far would put him very much in the picture to challenge for a third in a row this weekend. As Aaron Kinnett makes sure he's comfortable within those leathers. He certainly wasn't comfortable yesterday when we saw him having an almighty save coming into turn number 1. The uphill climb in were very, very sketchy conditions. Not sure how much he knew about the save, but he certainly landed back on board his frantic Alex machine.
Sedang apa, lagi di mana,
salam-salam juga boleh bantu. Necessarily seen all of that this weekend, although he did rise up to third by the end of practice this morning.
He had a couple of pretty spectacular moments as well. Unbelievable save coming into turn 1. Was it yesterday afternoon? Yesterday morning it was, sorry, yeah, when conditions were at their worst this weekend.
Oh my god, ini masih Q2, berarti masih banyak waktu ya guys.
Massive rise, losing the front, and then the rear came round, threw him over the top. It looked as though he was going to
bisa.
Fuel tank pretty crushingly, but still managed to play to the gallery afterwards. It was a pretty inspired save. I'd be surprised if we see a better one or a more spectacular one this entire season. But yeah, you're right, he hasn't been topping sessions or even really threatening to top sessions, has Kinnett, but he has consistently been there in the top 3, 4, 5 positions all weekend long, so certainly a contender for the front row, I would say, in this session coming up.
As we now flip back through the field to find Alonso Lopez, who was well, he still is the race lap record holder. Of course, the all-time lap record was previously held by his former teammate Fermín Aldeguer. Now, Alonso Lopez this morning was inside the top 10, which isn't exactly a disaster, but certainly every time we saw Alonso Lopez on screen, he seemed far from happy with his morning's work.
Yeah, anytime he crossed the line and we had a camera shot off him, he was shaking his head in great displeasure. So obviously something was irritating him. He did have a crash earlier on today as well. I think it was done at turn 12. And something wasn't maybe quite right with his setting just after that. So he'll be eager to see whether the team has managed to find some changes to improve his feeling. And that was a rider whose feeling has greatly improved as well. Philip Salad's just in front of his teammate Jake Dixon at the start of this Q2 session. Salad said yesterday ranked among the lowest moments of his entire career. He was 28th and last in the practice session yesterday. could find no confidence whatsoever on Pirelli's wet tyres. No feeling, and yeah, just cut a very disgruntled and depressed figure in the paddock yesterday evening. But in the dry, he's returned to his Argentina levels of competitiveness, and of course he was fairly unlucky to be out of that podium scrap after coming together with Marcus Ramirez in the race 2 weeks ago.
Ringankan tangan, boleh like dan juga subscribe teman-teman sekalian. Tidak ada ruginya, apalagi di bulan Ramadan. Bagi-bagi berkah, bagi-bagi rezeki ya teman-teman sekalian. Boleh bantu subscribe dan juga like. Sebentar lagi race sprint race guys. Jadi sprint race ini fungsinya adalah untuk menambah poin, dan salah satu race utama juga ya sebelum race utama di MotoGP di besok itu kita akan saksikan kelas utama MotoGP dini hari dan hari Senin, tepatnya dini hari jam 3 pagi guys. Ya guys ya.
Recent track experience from going through qualifying one. You can see Dixon has dropped in behind Tony Arbolino on this lap. Van den Gorberg also looks to try and carve through on the Termaster Rio Honda win. So certainly not a one to remember in this session for Dixon. It's going to be his teammate who's going to set the initial benchmark. He did a 2:08.2 in Q1. He's into the 2:07s in qualifying 2. That's still a good 0.6 of a second shy of what we saw from Gonzalez in Q1. But Salac is your early pace setter.
He is indeed. Tony Arbolino with a good early time as Marcus Ramirez gets a provisional front row slot as well for the American racing team at their home race. And look at this for David Alonso up there into 4th. Now it is early days in this section, and we're still to see the best of Gonzalez, Dixon and Aaron Canet. All names were expected to fight for pole position, but the signs are pretty good, you have to say, for David Alonso so far. Gonzalez on this first lap, he's rolled out of it in the third sector. Canet now up onto the front row. It's a double front row as it stands for the Phantom team. Canet and Baltus running in tandem.
Yang merayakan tentunya, ya guys.
Plenty to come from him. For the first time this season, taking part in a battle for pole position without having taken the Q1 route. Vietti automatically through this time.
It's been a slightly less dramatic Saturday afternoon for Celestino Vietti. He has a bit of a mixed bag record at this track. A couple of crashes in promising positions in years gone by. Marcus Ramirez has taken real advantage of Jake Dixon's slipstream up ahead. Dixon hasn't quite managed to find his
thank you guys.
So far. Time and screen saying that it's not looking competitive for Jake, but our time and screens do say that he's on a personal best lap, so this could be maybe a place on the first 2 rows for the number 96, although he has lost quite a significant amount of time in split number 3.
Marcus Ramirez, who we're riding on board with, was on course for pole position here last season, but he made a key error coming into turn 20, the final corner. So let's see if Ramirez can get it right this time. He's part of a fast train here as Dixon gets well out of the way. It's not been the qualifying session that he was expecting so far. So the 24.
Okay guys, boleh diinfokan, boleh DM ke IG saya guys. Nanti akan saya bagikan linknya di IG, ya, Viewpoint. DM ke situ, nanti saya bagikan, boleh. Karena kalau di kolom komentar, saya takutnya teman-teman kena apa batasan kalau saya bagikan linknya di kolom komentar. Boleh IG DM ke atas teman-teman. Viewpoint. Kedengaran nggak suara saya? Kedengaran lah ya seharusnya. Ya teman-teman, salam dari Sanggau Kalbar, Kalimantan Barat. Sanggau. Oke, siap. Terima kasih Bang King Happy. Mohon izin subscribe dan juga like ya teman-teman. Kang King Happy. Selalu happy. The King Happy. Salam, terima kasih. Salam semuanya. Salam abangku. Abangku dari Sumut. Link boleh DM IG ya teman-teman. Boleh dibantu tuh guys. Terima kasih banyak teman-teman sekalian. King Happy. Apa nih jagoannya Abang King Happy? Jagoannya buat race, sprint race malam ini Bang. Apakah jagoannya masih banyak pilihan, Pico, Alex, Mark, atau yang lainnya Bang? Jagoannya boleh tulis di kolom komentar abangku. Untuk jagoannya Abang King Happy dan Bang Indo Senang. Bang Indo Senang ya. Boleh abangku, Bang King Happy. Saya sambil setting, nanti saya bagikan linknya teman-teman. Linknya nanti di DM di IG ya guys. Di sini di sini ya. Sini ya. IG saya bagikan teman-teman. Boleh bantu subscribe dan juga like dulu ya teman-teman ya guys. Ringankan hati di bulan Ramadan ini, boleh perbanyak pahala
in the dry at the end of this morning session. So that is a massive chunk of time that he has managed to find over the lunch break here. Currently sitting in 5th, and yeah, a lot of people have been asking me, why is Alonso so far back? What's been going on? I think a lot of people really did have very heightened expectations that he was going to be competitive from the very first
race. Masih ada waktu untuk sprint race live ya guys.
Add in the fact that he had a shoulder dislocation during his off-season, which was far from ideal, and he was far from physically fit during at least one of the pre-season tests. Those are fairly big hurdles to overcome.
Agak kabur ya. Karena kenapa guys? Saya bilang ini agak kabur. Mohon izin, maafkan atas kekurangan ya, kekurangan dari live ini. Biasanya saya live menggunakan splitter untuk apa ya? Splitter untuk penangkap dari TV. Tapi kali ini saya karena di kampung, saya nggak bawa peralatan yang begitu lengkap. Saya hanya menggunakan kamera ini untuk melihat skate picture untuk audiens atau abang-abang sekalian, sahabat viewpoint bisa lihat. Jadi sedikit resolusinya agak sedikit kurang ya guys. Mohon izin dimaklumin karena pulang kampung, jadi nggak bawa peralatan. Ya guys. Oke. Sekali lagi mohon untuk bantu subscribe dan juga like ya guys. Teman-teman bantu guys. Dibantu.
Surgery on that right hand, which he injured at the final pre-season test at Marquez. Gutierrez has been
dibantu ya.
Deputy for Garcia here in 14th. So shout out to the Spaniard for his performance so far.
Well, if you want a little bit of history, potentially about to be matched here. Last Belgian pole position in Moto2 did come here. Xavier Simeon back in 2015, 10 years ago. Barry Baltus is currently 3 minutes 40 seconds. If we could put the teeth back in, away from potentially ending that way. But there are a list of contenders, as long as your arm looking to try and deny that. We have this nowhere near best yet. Dixon, who's currently in 12th place, nor from Manu Gonzalez, who's currently in 18th place, back in the 6th row. Jake Dixon said in pre-season testing that joining the Mark VDS team, they have such a calming influence on me. We're about to see in the next 3 minutes just how much of a calming influence that they're having on Jake. We can have an update now from pit lane on the Brit with Elliot.
Yeah, I was trying to race between the Intact GP box and the Mark VDS box because I saw Gonzalez and Dixon both not looking happy at all. Dixon came in, and I don't know if you saw it on the live, I couldn't see the TV pictures, but he wasn't happy with something at all. So I raced down there. They changed the rear tyre very quickly. The mechanic then gave the thumbs up to Jake, and then he went back out pretty quickly. So no obvious signs of anything damaged on the machine or anything unhappy. It looked like it was potentially a rear tyre that was causing some issues for Dixon. So we'll see on the next 2.5 minutes whether that was the case. And same for Gonzalez. Nothing really too much wrong in terms of the bike. So we're intrigued to see how they both go in the next 2 minutes.
Okay, thanks very much, Elliot. 1 and 2 in the championship, and well, 2 of the fastest names so far this weekend, struggling in this qualifying 2 sessions so far.
Teman-teman, ini masih Q2 Moto2, ada 2 menitan lagi. 2 menitan lagi. Setelah itu baru kita saksikan sprint race live untuk MotoGP-nya, guys.
In his career so far, that was in Japan last year, but he's never had a pole. And could this be a provisional pole for the Dutchman? Not quite. Does he knock Baltas off top spot, but second place, pretty good.
Yeah, how many predicted this front row then with 1:50 to go? Baltas, Van den Gorberg and Aaron Canet. Well, we have seen fastest first sectors come in for Arbolino and for Manu Gonzalez, who's looking to restore a little bit of order to this qualifying session. We're right on board with him now. Dixon has also lit up the second sector, but he's not as quick at the moment at the same final lap as Gonzalez.
Ya, buat teman-teman sekalian yang belum subscribe dan like, mohon ringankan tangannya. Di bulan suci Ramadan ini semakin banyak berkah ya teman-teman, dan juga bisa banyak membantu orang dengan klik tombol subscribe dan like. Makasih banyak teman-teman sekalian. Masih ada 1 menit 10 detik lagi guys untuk sprint race ya, masih Q2 Moto2 guys teman-teman.
See a complete rewriting of the order here on the left-hand sides of your screens after these guys have completed their lap times.
Yeah, Lopez is on a personal best, but Gonzalez might just have to, I guess, stay patient in these final 2 quarters and not just launch on the inside of Alonso Lopez, although he might be getting held up a little bit. Is he going to go up the inside? Well,
yeah, teman-teman ya.
First, who does have some empty time ahead of him, but he certainly has kept it calm in this session as Dixon set to 2:07.4. Gonzalez misses out. He did lose time behind Alonso Lopez, and that might have swung it in Dixon's favour. He goes on to pole position.
Impressive stuff then for Jake Dixon, who is on course to keep this near perfect run alive this weekend of topping every single session he's been in. We also saw improvements there for Tony Arbolino in 6th. Dennis Onju improved up into 9th, and you'd have to say he still has a little bit left in the tank as well on what will be his final flying lap of the session.
Aaron Canet all arms and elbows as he makes his way into turn 11. So Canet's now back to 5th. Baltas still hanging on to a place on the front row of the grid. Dixon's pushing on again. He's up at the first sector once more, looking to extend his advantage over Gonzalez, who hasn't set a very good first sector. So Gonzalez's pole streak might well have been brought to an end because he's not improving on this current lap, and we'll now be hoping that he stays on the front row of the grid.
Look at this from David Alonso. He's actually getting a little bit closer here to Aaron Canet on this lap time. Canet's lost a bit of time in sector number 2. Doesn't look as though Canet will have enough to get on a par with Jake Dixon on his final flying lap here, but I would say a place on the front row would certainly satisfy the number 44. Alonso.
Karena waktu di mid itu bang terbatas. Nanti sebelum race-nya selesai takutnya sudah habis. Jadi masih ada waktu karena belum mulai teman-teman. Yang belum mulai, jadi nanti saya bagi linknya teman-teman ya. Ya Bang Indo ya, mohon dimaklumi sebentar ya Bang. Bang Indo senang. Udah tadi masuk ke IG-nya. Robert CR ya Bang ya, Bang Robert ya. Oke, ini sudah selesai guys. Sudah selesai di Moto2 Q2 ya, mungkin sebentar lagi ya. Saya juga nggak tahu. Ya, sebentar lagi mungkin akan dimulai untuk sprint race-nya.
To 8th, we thought that was going to be a little higher, and it looks as though Jake Dixon has managed to put an end to Manu Gonzalez's pole run so far this year.
Pole position number 7 for Jake Dixon, his first since Motegi last year, and he remains undefeated at the Circuit of the Americas this weekend. P1 in, FP1 practice, FP2, and now Q2. Jake Dixon. A session that was looking a little bit precarious halfway through the session, ends with pole position.
Yes, what an absolute disaster it's been for Celestino Vietti. He'll be starting the race from the 6th row, 18th for the Italian, and you can see there, head in his hands, and he's just looking down at his fuel tank in absolute despair. He knows that any chance of a decent result tomorrow has been impacted in a big way.
Jake Dixon is well and truly pumped up with that, and who can blame him? We saw him having conversations with his crew chief Luciano Castro midway through the session, and there was a little bit of trepidation down there in pit lane. I'm sure Lucio's much happier with life now. He's talking about it.
He certainly has been what a weekend for Jake, dominant on Friday, a little bit of trouble there. That's tell us what was going on there in the first half of that Q2, but the second half he pulled it out of the bag with pole position.
Yeah, it was an amazing weekend again, and the first trailer was not perfect. I think a bit nervous because he went behind Philip that made already Q1. He had already the speed. So
Sebentar ya bang, coba bagi dulu ya. Bang Desti dari mana nih Bang Desti? Lokasi. Bang Desti. Siap.
Great job today and good luck for tomorrow. Thank you.
Well, Barry Baltus might be struggling to get back to Parc Fermé after this raid. Looks as though he's had a fast oil crash in the first sector, and looks as though he's
Oke, saya ambil charger dulu ya guys, teman-teman ya.
after he's just secured his best ever Grand Prix qualifying position. But Jake Dixon has taken his 7th ever pole position in the Moto2 category and his first of the season.
Oke, guys. Kita lihat masih ada beberapa. Oh, Bang Desti Win dari Sultra, Sulawesi Tenggara. Salam Bang dari Sumut Bang, Bang Desti. Oke Bang. Salam dari Sumut Bang. Langsung masuk ke IG aja Bang, IG saya Bang di atas Bang. Biar kita bagikan linknya Bang. Oke Bang, masuk IG DM aja Bang. Oke, sprint race sudah mau dimulai guys. Sprint race.
Start for 2025. A cracking sprinting Kota is next live. It's time for MotoGP.
Yo.
So first on the calendar 12 years ago, back in 2013, the Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas. Cost $400 million back in the day to construct, and what a venue it is. 5.51 kilometers, 3.343 miles, 20 corners, all of them posing a tough challenge for the world's fastest riders. Turns 1 to 6, you weave your way through sector 1, halfway into turn 11, complete sector 2, 250 kilometers an hour down the back straight into sector 3. And then those 3 crucial right-handers, 16, 17 and 18, towards the tail end of the...
Kenapa Bang saya nggak masukkan ke kolom komentar teman-teman sekalian? Karena di kolom komentar takutnya ada pembatasan Bang. Bukan saya nggak mau di kolom komentar. Di DM IG ya Bang. IG di atas Bang. Di atas sebelah sini Bang. Oke Bang.
So the story of 2025 in MotoGP has been a tale of 2 brothers. Just as it was in Thailand, in Terima.
Profil yang mana Bang? Profil yang mana? Viewpoint di atas ini Bang. Bang bisa lihat. Boleh bantu subscribe dan like juga ya Bang. Subscribe dan like dulu Bang, teman-teman, bantu. Yang di atas ini Bang, IG-nya Bang. Di atas ini. Bang Desti. Itu udah pakai. Itu dia pakai IG teman. Hah?
Spot away from Jorge Martin, the injured reigning world champion, is here today, or is here this weekend in Austin, Texas, spending time with the factory Aprilia squad. We haven't seen Jorge, of course, since the opening day of testing in Sepang back in early February. But everybody, once again, here in Austin, Texas, is chasing one rider. The famous Stars and Stripes flag overlooking turn one as we get set for sprint action here over 10 laps coming up shortly.
Siap-siap sebentar ya Bang. Ini masih belum mulai. Kondisi masih seperti ini Bang. Boleh dibantu teman-teman sekalian di subscribe dan juga like ya teman-teman. Bantu ringankan tangannya untuk klik tombol itu aja guys. Oke, saya buat linknya sekarang, saya bagikan. Tapi mohon untuk keterbatasan ya Bang, karena perlengkapannya karena pulang kampung. Jadi ala kadarnya aja dulu Bang, biar bisa nonton dulu sprint race Bang ya buat malam ini. Oke, ini sudah saya bagikan. Sebentar ya guys, teman-teman ya, saya buat linknya.
In 2023, when he went on to win the Grand Prix. Always great to be in this part of Texas. Wonderful venue, what a city it is. Downtown Austin, the live music capital of the world. Well, they're all playing to the tune of Marc Marquez right now in MotoGP. Matt Burton, Lewis Sudderby in the commentary box, talking you through all the build-up and the 10-lap sprint coming your way. We'll be lights out just after 3 p.m. local time here in Texas. Jack Appleyard enjoying some rare sunshine down in pit lane as well. Marc Marquez then on pole position, Fabio Di Giannantonio and Alex Marquez on the front row, and the 5th fastest Ducati at the end of qualifying this morning. When have we ever said that over the last couple of years? Pecco Bagnaia with his back against the wall, the double MotoGP world champion, with work to do from 6th place. Once again, Lewis outfought and outridden by his teammate Marc Marquez. Half a second the gap between the two factory Ducati stars.
And the points gap, which currently stands at 31 between Marc Marquez and Pecco Bagnaia, who's third, of course, in the World Championship, in danger of growing still further. That is going to be a major concern for Pecco Bagnaia, who felt he had the best feeling he'd had on any Friday so far this season. Yesterday, that feeling did not translate into a place on the front row of the grid. Bagnaia once again is playing catch-up, but at the moment Marc Marquez is not a rider that he's threatening to catch up.
Yeah, the 28-year-old Italian facing his position in 19 Grand Prix since he was 7th back in the Spanish Grand Prix in Jerez last year. In the hottest conditions of the weekend so far, well, Marc Marquez simply has been too hot to handle in 2025 so far. These fans, what a moment they're experiencing as number 93 comes to start from pole position in Austin for the 8th time. His love affair with Austin just continues, doesn't it? It rolls on and on. Pole position number 69 of Marc's glittering career. This is 117th front row start in MotoGP, and that banner says it all, doesn't it? Marc is on fire, and that is the sort of the song now, the factory Ducati theme tune in many respects. I won't do the rendition of it right now, but yeah, Marc is on fire. That's the song that they all sing after his brilliant trebles in both Thailand and in Termas.
And we can't overemphasise just what a huge, overwhelming red hot favourite he is to take the sprint and Grand Prix double here in Kota. I think I last checked on the bookies, 7-1 on Marquez is to win here this weekend.
Yeah, so if you're going to put £7, you're going to get £1 back on Marc Marquez. So the bookies are pretty confident that the 93 here is going to convert pole position into a sprint win as he catches up with a legend of the sport. Of course, having a much less stressful life of it, I guess, now is Freddie Spencer.
Yeah, absolute legend. Freddie Spencer, one of the best to ever throw his leg over a motorcycle. Yeah, of course, our former FIM MotoGP steward, 3 times a Grand Prix world champion. Amazingly, he did it in MotoGP and in 250s in the same season, an achievement which will never, ever be matched, will it? Great to see the Texas fans, the American fans really soaking up the pre-sprint atmosphere here in Texas. Hasn't been all plain sailing so far here in round 3. 4:32-year-old Marc Marquez, if you joined us yesterday on what was a very grey and gloomy start to this Red Bull Grand Prix of the Americas, a very wet FP1, Marc Marquez a little bit of overconfidence creeping in. You can forgive him that, given what an amazing start he's had to the new campaign. A crash in the wet conditions down the hill into that tricky turn 2. Thankfully for Marc, he was uninjured, but just a little bit of a wake-up call. Just a reminder that these MotoGP bikes, rain or shine, can bite you when you're least expecting it. But Marc Marquez looking strong to maintain. Can he make it 5 out of 5? Well, we saw Frankie Morbidelli dance the samba in Argentina, didn't we? Last time out after his rare podium in Argentina.
Cameraman okay?
I was going to say that we might need, the FIM stewards might need to look at that one. That long lap penalty coming in for one of the other Kota Techs. Yeah, Frankie Morbidelli. 1,414 days without a MotoGP podium. Thankfully, we can put that stat to bed after his brilliant ride to 3rd place behind the Marquez brothers last time out in Argentina. And he's kept that ball rolling, Lewis. 5th place on the grid for Frankie.
Yep, and he was super strong yesterday in the wet conditions. Looks like we've seen the last of those, though, for the weekend. But Frankie Morbidelli carrying such an air of confidence nowadays. Of course, confidence that took a real hammering in the latter part of his Yamaha days, and of course a bit of a false start to his 2024 season. But we're now seeing the Frankie that, of course, VR46 were so keen to see, and that's why they've shown so much faith in him. Pedro Acosta there on screen, looked like he was going to be starting from the front row earlier on today until that late reinstatement of Fabio Gianantonio's fastest lap. Acosta, though, Marc Marquez pointed to him as a potential threat from outside the group of Ducatis yesterday, and he lived up to billing by qualifying in 4th place.
Yeah, the 20-year-old Spaniard is best qualifying in 7 Grand Prix since he was on pole position at Motegi in Japan towards the back end of last season. He was on the front row of the grid here last year, of course, Acosta, when he was a bit of a teenage tearaway at the start of his MotoGP career. He was 4th in the sprint, 2nd in the Grand Prix. He led for 6 laps actually in the Grand Prix here last year. The last time we've seen Pedro Acosta actually lead a Grand Prix. And believe it or not, since Austin last year, he is the only non-Ducati rider to podium in MotoGP. It just gives you an indication of just how dominant the Bologna factory have been of late. Wow, what's going through the mind at the moment of Pecco Bagnaia? He does crack a smile, but perhaps this morning, had it not been for a mistake at turn 1 in Q2 for Fermin Aldeguer, we could have been staring at the highly unlikely scenario of Pecco Bagnaia being the slowest of all 6 Ducatis here today. Aldeguer was 12th at the end of Q2 after he did have that small slide off, the front end washing out in the first corner.
So here's Alex Marquez, who for once will have someone other than his brother Marc in front of him on the grid. Alex will go from the outside of the front row with Fabio Gianantonio on the VR46 Ducati nicely in between them. Alex Marquez has led more laps, certainly on a Sunday, than anyone else so far this season, but he hasn't led Marc on a Saturday so far in 2025. You surely feel that if anyone is going to either give Marc Marquez a smidge of difficulty, they're going to have to get ahead of him at the start of this Tito sprint. If Marquez leads out of that first sector, you surely feel he'll lead at the end of the last sector, of the last lap.
sure we'll see them very, very shortly, but there's some outstanding rides further down the grid, particularly from the official factory Honda squad. Luca Marini, who was quickest in this morning's Q1 session, what a boost for the Italian. He's going to start from 7th place on the grid, by far his best ever qualifying performance on a factory Honda. In fact, the first time Luca has featured in a Q2 session on board the RC213V, and just 1 place behind him on that 3rd row is his Honda HRC Castrol colleague Juan Mir, who crashed late on at turn 15 in Q2, but Mir, his best qualifying in 27 Grand Prix since India back in 2023. The Honda revival continues.
And I think exceeding most of our expectations, and I dare say even Honda's coming into this season. We thought they'd made progress in pre-season testing, but we certainly weren't expecting to be coming to Austin for round 3 of the season with Honda second to Ducati in the Constructors' Championship, which is in part down to Ayagura's disqualification, which removed Aprilia and dropped them below Honda. But they've been competitive throughout this weekend. Juan Mir with rubber all over his shoulder after a huge save coming through the final couple of left-handers this morning. Turn 19, we nearly saw him go down in qualifying, and he saved it on his shoulder. Here is what it looked like from on board the Honda.
Yeah, right at that very point of the circuit this morning, just before that, he had actually picked the Honda up on his elbow. Now, this was all the late drama. Mir crashing out. Fabio Di Giannantonio firing in a 2:01.189 over the line, which eventually did secure him 2nd place on the grid. Initially, that lap was cancelled, but this is the CCTV footage. There's Marc Marquez just on the edge of that circle. Now there is Juan Mir crashing there through 15. And right there is Fabio Di Giannantonio. To his right, to the left as we look at it, is the Marshalls post. And look at that, you can clearly see there. That was a great decision actually by the FIM MotoGP stewards to look at that CCTV, and quite rightly so, with some justification. You can understand why Di Giannantonio would have perhaps felt more than hard done by had he not got that lap back, because he had absolutely no time whatsoever to react to that yellow flag. So that was a reason why, happily to report for the Giannantonio fans and for Valentino Rossi Ducati fans, that's why he got his 2nd place back.
He was already fully committed there into the corner, wasn't he? Absolutely no chance of him doing anything about that. So he will start from the front row of the grid, and that did relegate Pedro Acosta down to the 2nd row. But Marc Marquez starts from the very front as he looks to extend this extraordinary unbeaten record so far in the factory red of Ducati. 2 victories to go with 2 sprint victories following 2 pole positions. That became 3 poles this morning in qualifying. I don't think many are expecting him to be beaten over the course of this 10-lap sprint, but they don't race these on paper. You have to go out there and do the job. And Marc Marquez, in the press conference on Thursday, was very keen to guard against overconfidence. He knows he's got to go out there and deliver once again to keep that unbeaten run alive.
Yeah, I guess the big question inside the paddock, I've actually heard a lot of American fans actually discussing amongst themselves who's going to finish 2nd in the sprint and the Grand Prix here in Austin. They have a lot of support here for the number 93. Let's go down to Jack down in pit lane. I think we've got a special guest waving the checker flag at the end of the sprint today. America 2 joins Jack right now.
Yeah, Jack Shepherd with...
Makasih banyak.
This is the Pertamina Enduro VR46 Racing Team.
Peluang menjadi pemenang tak hanya ditentukan oleh kecepatan, melainkan aksi tepat untuk hasil yang akurat. Untuk mereka yang tangguh menuangkan harapan melalui performa terbaik yang diberikan. Demi menjadi kebanggaan Indonesia, Pertamina Enduro VR46 Racing Team.
Pertamina Enduro, Oli Tango, Andala, Indonesia.
Why do they doubt the kid? I'm about to prove them all wrong again. I got a low tolerance, cause they don't even know what the problem is. It's me. We gon' always win. Promise that that's not a promise, yeah, that is a threat. You know that I promise to bring the team commas. When the whole team win, that's when you flex. Win, and I'ma do it again. Watch me win. I'ma always win.
Said, what are the odds of 2
to see you, and great to see you here as well. Good luck with the checkered flag.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Jack, and to Dax Shepherd, who I think it's fair to say is a newly converted Marquez fan. He wasn't exactly sitting on the fence there about some of his previous thoughts about the number 93, but like so many, you do just have to sit back and marvel at the mercurial talent of the 32-year-old Spaniard who comes to the grid in what is a pole position that's almost got his name reserved on it here in Austin, Texas. It's a new MotoGP record, as you mentioned. Never in Grand Prix history has a rider come to the same circuit and taken 8 pole positions. On the line tomorrow is an 8th victory here in Austin for Marc Marquez. His journey to greatness really in MotoGP started, didn't it, right here 12 years ago, back in 2013, where he rocked up and won in dominant fashion on his first visit to Austin, Texas, and took the record away from a man who we've just seen on screens with Mark inside the factory Ducati garage, Freddie Spencer, who was previously, of course, the youngest ever Premier Class Grand Prix victor. Now, I'm looking forward to this little chat down on the grid because these two young men, well, they are Supercross superstars, enjoying life in the sunshine here in MotoGP. It's Jet and Hunter Lawrence joining Jack.
Yeah, down here at the grid at Austin, there are VIPs, celebrities everywhere, none much bigger than these two guys. I mean, firstly, a shame that you are here because we'd love to see you actually out there racing instead of being here visiting, but good to see you. Jet, firstly, I mean, what do you make of what Mark's been able to do so far this year? I know you're a big fan, your relationship goes back a number of years. How nice is it to see him dominating as he has so far this year?
Yeah, it's always good to see a friend dominating, especially both the brothers have been doing well. Obviously, we're pumped to see that because obviously Hunter and I are brothers, and we're always pumped when we do good together, so to see them doing good together is great. So, but no, I wish I could be out there racing with the lads. It would be a dream, but I'm going to try and work that in one of my contracts maybe. If once I'm done with dirt bikes, we can maybe get into MotoGP.
Well, we'd love to make it happen. Hunter, as Jet was just saying, nobody can step into the shoes of Mark and Alex better than you two. What is it like fighting at the top of your sport with someone that you know better than anyone else?
It's unreal. I'm sure, as you can imagine, watching Mark and Alex go back and forth is just unreal, and the fact they're brothers makes it all that much more special. So I think we have the same kind of characteristics and stuff in our, discipline, but it's unreal to see them doing well. Hopefully we can do the same once we're back from our injuries, go 1 and 2, that'd be unreal.
Quick fire prediction from you both, who's going to win the sprint?
Siap, Bang Isra.
Siap. Or maybe
Jadi jagoannya ada
or
pasti
something
ya.
would be great.
M93 ya, Bang.
Yeah, we'd
Siap,
love to
siap.
always to see our fellow countryman Jack Miller
Ini
win.
Bang, sebentar lagi Bang, udah dimulai Bang.
I'll go with Mark, he's won
Isra.
here the most. Once you've won in a city once,
Buat
it's
teman-teman yang
just easy
lain
to do
boleh
it
bantu
again, right?
subscribe dan
Good to
juga
see you
like
both, have fun.
Thank you.
Yeah, great to hear from Jet and Hunter Lawrence. No great surprise there, a bit of Aussie loyalty shining through. They've got half their hearts on Jack Miller and half their hearts on the big favourite, Marc Marquez.
Let's take a look at the grid then. You've already seen your front row. Marc Marquez, Fabio Di Gianantonio and Alex Marquez. Pedro Acosta bumped out of the top 3 after Di Gianantonio's lap time was reinstated. He shares the second row with Morbidelli and Bagnaia. Marini, Mir and Miller on the 3rd row from Maverick Vinales back in Q2 for the first time this season with Quartararo and Aldegal row 4. Seki Rins and Zarco on the 5th row. Zarco back 4 rows from where he started in Argentina. Binder, Bastianini and Agora on a heavyweight row 6. Ahead of Raul Augusto Fernandez and Solskjaer Change with Lorenzo Savadori completing your grid.
Well, Pedro Acosta was one of the stars of the show here in Kota last year when he fired away from the front row of the grid on the podium in the Grand Prix. Great chance of another top 3 fight here this afternoon. Acosta goes from 4th. Let's get the thoughts of his crew chief, Paul Trevathan, with Jack.
Yeah, great to see Pedro back up where he belongs, front of the 2nd row of the grid. He's had success here before, and after a difficult start to the year, just how hungry is he ahead of this one?
Yeah, I mean, the hunger's been there the whole year, I can tell you for that. But no, we're having a better weekend here. You know, the weather conditions have put us a little bit behind. We're trying to improve the bike, of course, and everything. So step by step, we're getting there. He's done some fantastic laps in qualifying, so we've given ourselves at least a fighting chance. So we'll be there for sure.
Good luck.
Cheers, buddy. Thank you.
Yes, thanks so very much to Paul Trevathan and to Jack down on the grid. Well, Trevor Dreher and Austin Anderson, Texas Trick Riders, are giving us a special cowboy show, pre-horsepower rodeo. Well, a bit of yeehaw and a bit of lasso at the front of the grid then. Great show. You always get a special show, don't you, when we come to Austin, Texas. I don't know if that was me right now. I've been tangled up and tripping up in that rope right now. Great show, though, to build up the atmosphere here in Kota.
I can't even keep my legs clear of the cables here in the commentary box without stumbling over, so I don't know how they manage that.
Two left feet on the dance floor, two left feet, I'm sure, as well, with the lasso in hand. As we mentioned, what a weekend it has been so far for Luca Marini, a former podium finisher in the Austin Grand Prix here a couple of years ago when he was plonked on top of a Ducati. But having one of his better weekends, certainly on a factory Honda. Marini, 7th place on the grid. Great job by the 27-year-old. There's going to be high hopes, big expectations in this 10-lap sprint coming up for Fabio Di Gianantonio, qualified second. Frankie Morbidelli, Termas Grand Prix podium for him. He goes from 5th. Let's get the thoughts of the VR46 Racing Team boss, Pablo Nieto, with Jack.
Pablo, both guys in a great position here ahead of this one. But with the sun out, beating down on this track. It's the hottest it's been all weekend. We're going into the unknown here. What kind of a sprint do you think we'll see take place?
Yeah, it's going to be hard, like always, no? We know that Mark is very, very fast. But anyway, we have to try to make our best, try to make very good first lap, because we know that the first lap in the first corner and corner 12 is going to be very hard. But anyway, try to stop him, try to make our race, and then we will see.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. Thanks to Pablo Nieto. Yeah, how on earth, though, do you stop Marc Marquez in this current rich vein of form he finds himself in? He could not have dreamt, could he, Marc Marquez, of a better start to his life as a factory Ducati rider. Jack Miller, well, no pressure. Jack Miller, Jet and Hunter Lawrence, your compatriots from back home in Australia, they're expecting big things. And so are we, because once again, Jack Miller, the leading light for Yamaha. It's 3 Grand Prix in a row now where Miller has been flying the flag for the Iwata factory. What can Jack do from the back of that 3rd row?
Yeah, I guess he would have been hoping we had similar conditions to yesterday in practice. Predictably, he was the first rider onto slicks when it dried out in practice and got himself into Q2 and backed that up with 9th on the grid. Well, penny for the thoughts of Pecco Bagnaia there, sitting on the 2nd row of the grid. Once again, comprehensively out-qualified by his teammate Marc Marquez. He's got plenty of support. And I'm sure he'll be drawing upon all of that energy from the fans. But of course, on the bike that is important, and he still appears to be searching for that feeling from 2024, which is what he's after. So, I guess misunderstood, and Pecco Bagnaia perhaps not the best at articulating his comments post-Argentina, that he wanted the feeling back from 2024, if not the bike that he ran in 2024. What can he do from the 2nd row? What can Marc Marquez do from pole position? Their team manager, Davide Tardozzi, joins Jack.
Davide, obviously, Marc, a huge favourite here to win the sprint, but I think most people will be surprised by the performance of Pecco earlier. Just talk us through what happens there and how confident he is that he can get into the podium fight.
Yeah, he still have some trouble on the front, having the confidence he had in the end of last year, but in the end he make a small mistake during his fastest lap, otherwise he can be at least 3rd. But anyway, it depends really from the start. Here is, you know, the first corner is very, very difficult, and we'll see. If he have a good start, I think that he can fight for the podium, while it will be difficult to come up.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks to Davide Tardozzi, thanks to Jack once again down on what is a very hot grid now. Yeah, it's a bit of a pinch point, isn't it, as you climb up the hill, 41-metre climb up from the grid position to the highest point of turn 1. And we've seen a few incidents there down the years, and Bagnaia could be looking to certainly avoid a bit of early trouble at the back of that 2nd row. What a brilliant, unmatched vantage point of any circuit in the world is the observation tower, smack bang in the middle of this circuit of the Americas complex, sprawling out over 1,500 acres on the outskirts of downtown Austin. The Australian fans are out in force. A giveaway, isn't it? A kangaroo with 43 on it. We don't know where they've come from. Actually, I bumped into a couple of Australian fans from Melbourne who have made what is a very, very long trip to sample the horsepower rodeo. They said they'll see us in Phillip Island as well later on in the year, so some real MotoGP die-hard fans who made the long journey from down under.
Yeah, not as die-hard, I feel, as those that are staying up in the wee hours in Australia to watch this. We thank you wherever you're joining us all over the world. This is our third sprint of the season coming up. Marc Marquez has led from the front in each of the previous two. He has got fans everywhere he goes. The Marquez speed shot, he says on the back of that helmet. His speed has been unmatched so far.
Alex Marquez then on the front row for the third race in a row in 2025. All three riders on the front row, medium front, soft slick Michelin tyre. Fabio Di Giannantonio's first front row since the tail end of 2023. But can this golden, incredible winning streak continue on a factory Ducati for Marc Marquez? He's on pole in Qatar.
Abang-abangku yang di gate sudah nampak dengan jelas bang, ada masalah bang, kira-kira boleh komen aja ya bang, jelas ya bang, kelihatan ya bang, abang-abangku yang di ini. Maaf lo respon.
Qatar, so often in Austin, Texas, has been home sweet home for Marc Marquez. 3 rounds in 2025, 3 pole positions. Can he make it 3 successive sprint victories? Nobody has been able to match the speed of the 93 so far here this weekend. Once again, for the 8th time here in Austin, he launches away from pole position on a front row. Another all Ducati front row, which features Fabio Di Giannantonio looking back to his best after his long podium finishing start to 2025. He fires away from 3rd place on the Gresini Racing Ducati. Under clear blue skies, hottest conditions of the weekend so far by far. Can anybody match the hot pace of Marc Marquez? Nobody in history has taken 8 pole positions at the same circuit. That was another record in Austin that went the way of 32-year-old Spaniard Marc Marquez this morning. 74 points has been the maximum haul available so far in 2025. Marc Marquez has taken the lot. 16 points clear he is of Alex going into this 10-lap sprint as we pass over the Texas state flag. Marc Marquez on the warm-up lap, a red-hot favourite to take a 3rd successive sprint victory. What would be his 4th in the new era. 28-year-old brother Alex. Can he pose once again the biggest threat to Marc's early season domination? Or can Fabio Di Giannantonio, for just the 2nd time in his career, find his way through to the medal ceremony at the end of a sprint? Work to do as well further back for the likes of Pecco Bagnaia on the factory Ducati. He's 6th place. Keep an eye on the fast-starting Pedro Acosta. We know how good the KTM is at launching off the line. Acosta, he's on the head of the 2nd row in 4th place. And do not discount a couple of factory Hondas who've looked strong here on Sprint Saturday so far. They both on the 3rd row of the grid. Marini goes away from 7th, Joan Mir from 8th.
Every rider in the field has gone for the medium front soft rear combination except Joan Zarco, who's gone for the medium rear tyre, perhaps already with an eye on tomorrow's Grand Prix.
Yeah, of course we'll go double the distance tomorrow at 2 p.m. local time here in Texas. That will be the 20-lap Red Bull Grand Prix of the Americas. The main priority though right now is trying to see who will take our 3rd gold medal of the season, who'll take the latest 12 points up for grabs in our mammoth 2025 MotoGP World Championship. It's round 3 of 22, our longest season in history. Already, Marc Marquez has stamped his authority all over the new season. The number 93 comes to pole position number 3 of the season so far. All eyes on the 32-year-old to see if he can continue this unrivaled domination of Kota, his unrivaled domination of 2025 so far. Undefeated in Thailand, undefeated in Termas. Can he stay undefeated here in Texas? We have the green flag then clearing at the back. We're going to go racing very shortly here in Texas. Marquez on pole position for the 8th time. It's lights out, and we're racing in the sprint here in Austin. Brilliant start once again from pole position by the number 93. He's going to get the drop on the field into the first corner. Coming from look at Pecco Bagnaia with a storming start. What a start by Pecco Bagnaia. He briefly led into the first corner, having started the back of the second round, 6th place. Marquez back at the front. Fabio De Gianantonio's got a little bit beaten up there early on.
Bagnaia carving through again on Marquez. I'm fed up of sitting behind my teammate in 2025, says Pecco.
This is what I've been waiting for, red on red. The gloves are off. What a start this has been for Bagnaia. Marquez leans 93 versus 63 already. This has been the sprint we've been waiting for so far in 2025. Marquez from Bagnaia, and Alex Marquez in 3rd spot.
This is the Pecco Bagnaia we've been waiting for since the start of the season. Alex Marquez right behind him in 3rd place as Acosta tries to rebound from what was a terrible start as he comes through on Frankie Morbidelli.
He pushes his way through there. The Gianantonio, the big loser, halfway around this first lap, started 2nd through sector 1. He was all the way back down in 7th place. They power now down top gear, 6th gear, hard now on the brakes into 1st gear, left hand to turn 12. Got to be careful here early on. You try and build temperature in that front tire. There is the Gianantonio, already trying to make Costa's ground. Acosta wide, going through 12. Quartararo rides around the outside of the Spaniard. Fabio Quartararo has had a brilliant start. Top 5 having started 11th.
Yeah, he's up to 4th now with Acosta running Morbidelli wide too. He took advantage of that one. So Pecco Bagnaia, we've been saying through the first 2 races, someone needs to just bloody Marquez's nose and just give him something to think about. Pecco Bagnaia has certainly done that on this first lap of 10. But is Marquez now with clear track ahead of him? We're going to move through. No, they're still battling each other.
Yeah, Marquez made a mistake. Marquez had a mistake. I think he had a moment there coming through 16 and 17. 3 abreast they go. And Marquez out of absolutely nowhere goes back to the front. What happened to Marquez coming through the fast rights? 16, 17, 18 because he dropped briefly behind Alex and Bagnaia, but now he's back at the front. What a first lap. The lap of the season so far without any question here in Kota. Mark leads it from Alex. Pecco Bagnaia in 3rd place. Sensational first lap for Quartararo. 11th to 4th. What a sprint.
And a miserable first lap for VR46. They're battling each other in the background. So here we go. Marquez, the rear comes round. He is so lucky he's in this sprint at all.
Well, they call it the horsepower rodeo, and he was clinging on for dear life there, wasn't he? Marquez, just look at that big black line. That Michelin rear tyre leaves as he powered through 18. That's what cost him all the momentum. That's how hard he was pushing him to try and break away at the front. And astonishingly, he just got his head down, never shot the throttle, did he, for barely a split second. And the very next corner, having been 3rd, lunges back on the inside of Alex and Bagnaia. What a response that was, almost launching himself to the moon.
The only thing that saved him really there was that Bagnaia and Alex Marquez had to check up themselves to not run into the back of Marquez through there. So in the end, he was right on the back of them and able to attack straight away. So he's putting a bit of distance now between himself and Alex Marquez. Somehow, at the end of all of that, we've got the same top 2 that we've had in the first 2 Grand Prix.
MotoGP 2025 has come alive here in Texas. Marquez snaking left and right on the brakes of that factory Ducati. Good battle raging further down the field as Alex Rins on the factory Yamaha. Somebody's gone really wide into turn 12. Quartararo hanging on, won a brilliant 4th place. Quartararo had a stormer of a first lap. Pedro Acosta's going the wrong way. We saw him wide at turn 12 at the back end of that lap 1. Let's just try and regroup and see where we're at after an incredible first couple laps here in Austin. Marquez stretching his legs at the front now. He's nearly 7/10 of a second clear of Alex. They're dropping Bagnaia and Quartararo 3rd and 4th respectively as it sits.
Yeah, the rider who went right in the back of the picture, I think, was Jack Miller on the Pramac Yamaha. He's plummeted down the order, having started on the 3rd row of the grid. Miller came through the 3rd sector in 18th place, so he's way out of contention. And he finally settled down. Marquez set to 2:02.1. That is 4/10 quicker than Alex Marquez, and over a second quicker than Bagnaia, who's now got Quartararo for company.
Mark and Alex, just like they were in Thailand and Termas, they're a race of their own. 202s from the pair of them. Bagnaia and Quartararo doing mid-203s. The Gian Antonio in the 204s. He really has not capitalised on that first front row start in many a while. Through we go, snaking and weaving our way through sector 1. On board with Quartararo. How aggressive was the former world champion on that first lap? He properly got his elbows and knees out, didn't he, on the number 20 factory Yamaha. You can see, though, on board with Quartararo, Mark and Alex are starting to clear off at the front of this sprint.
Yeah, Alex has been able to pull a 10th back in the first sector of this lap, but it's once we get into sectors 2 and 3 that Mark starts to stretch clear. And we're seeing a bit of a familiar story now for Pecco Bagnaia than we saw in the first 2 sprints, fighting a bit of a rear guard action. Back in Thailand, he was having to fend off in a Aprilia of Ayagura. In Argentina, he was fending off a Honda in John Zarco. This time, it's a Yamaha crawling all over him.
Just look how that Ducati just streaks away from the Yamaha out of that first gear, turn 11. There's nothing Quartararo can do. Look how aggressive, look how hard Quartararo is having to push the front of that factory Yamaha just to stay on par with Bagnaia. He was losing meters and meters, wasn't he, as they started to wind up through the gearbox down that 6th gear back straight. Just look how much time though he's eaten back up. Brilliant by Quartararo on the brakes there in a turn 12. He's leaving it all on the line, going for a rare sprint podium.
And Frankie Morbidelli's now quickly zooming up to the back of this battle as well for 3rd place. It's going to be a 3-way fight soon. Gian Antonio is looking to regroup and get himself into the battle of the podium, having started 2nd. And then it's Tuan Mir. We've got a battle between 2 Hondas and 2 KTMs in the tail end of the points. Mir 7th from Acosta Vinales and Marini.
It's over 20 months since Fabio Quartararo was last on a sprint podium. Aston 2023, and that was a bit of a present because Brad Binder was adjudged to have exceeded track limits on the very last lap. At the front, once again, it's Alex and Mark. 202.6s, they both swap. The Gian Antonio is finding his rhythm after a real poor first lap. In fact, he's the only other rider out on circuit right now that's into that 202 bracket. Alex Rins, something went wrong for Rins on that previous lap. He did a 205.2 and allowed Binder, Bezzecchi and Agura through. Rins from 11th down to 14th.
Here's the battle of the KTMs then for the 2 final points positions at the moment. Pedro Acosta and Maverick Vinales, and Vinales looks the quicker of the 2 at the moment as he's closed up on the back of Acosta. Just did not get the best of what was a crazy first lap. There was so much going on, but Pedro Acosta was slow off the line on the run up to turn 1, which has put him in the bottom half of the points.
It's a shame this for the Gian Antonio, because not saying he's got the pace to have really harassed Mark and Alex at the front of this sprint, but he's certainly got the pace to be in front of Bagnaia, Quartararo and Morbidelli. Of course, it's one thing to get on the rear tyre of those 3s. Look at the daylight now. Mark versus Alex. It's been the story, the familiar story for the Marquez family so far in 2025. And Marquez, so good in that sector 2. He took 2 tenths there.
They're losing it on the way into turn 15.
It just shows how hard Quartararo is having to wring the neck of that factory Yamaha. He knows he's completely outgunned on that 6th gear back straight. It's not even a contest, the horsepower game between Yamaha and Ducati. You always felt like Fabio's going to be really hanging on to fend off the likes of Morbidelli and the Gian Antonio late on. Morbidelli didn't even have to fight for that position. Quartararo had a big scare in Q2 this morning at the first corner. He was almost on the floor once again. Bagnaia has started to find his pace. A 202.605 from Bagnaia on that last lap was slightly quicker than Alex in 2nd place. Morbidelli, that mistake by Quartararo cost him 7 tenths of a second. Here we go then, into 14 and 15.
Very similar to this morning, wasn't it?
That's not the first almighty scare that Quartararo has had on sprint Saturday here.
He was almost on his elbow there, keeping that Yamaha upright. He did keep it upright, and he's now running in 5th place. That's potentially bad news for Bagnaia. With Morbidelli now in clear time, although as we mentioned, Bagnaia has now upped his pace. He's 1 1/4 seconds clear of Morbidelli, still a 2.5 seconds behind Alex Marquez. He's now matching the leading pace, but not catching them.
Quartararo now stuck in a VR46 Ducati sandwich, and there might be some big bother coming here now, because if the Gian Antonio can just set up a good exit here out of this first gear 11, well, he'll just pick up the slipstream and use the clear horsepower advantage advantage he has over the factory Yamaha. Can Quartararo do anything to defend this 5th place right now?
Vinales has passed Acosta in the back of the picture here from the KTMs, and we're riding on board with Pedro Acosta. He will not enjoy staring at the back of Maverick Vinales' Tech 3 RC16, and he wants that position back. Up the inside comes Acosta, KTM versus KTM, and Acosta takes P8 back.
Good job this, isn't it? Fabio Quartararo did hold off Fabio Di Giannantonio somehow, or Vinales almost washing out the front as he comes into the stadium section. Quartararo must have absolutely nailed that exit to 11 to absolute perfection.
Oh, rider in the back, I think that's Joan Mir down in the back of the picture, but Alex Marquez has really closed in on Mark somewhere around this lap. It was Mir who's gone down. There he is, turn 15, has seen his sprint come to an end, but somewhere in the 3rd sector, Marc Marquez lost 0.4 of a second to his younger brother, who is now closing in on the back of him, so the battle between the brothers up at the front may not be over yet.
Chapeau to Quartararo. How on earth on that Yamaha is he's still picking a fight with 2 dominant Ducati GP24s, the reference motorcycle of course in 2024. Up the hill we go, Morbidelli there in 4th place, Quartararo right on his rear tyre now as they bank it left. Hasn't been a happy turn 15 today for Joan Mir. He crashed there towards the back end of Q2 this morning, and this was his charge towards the top 4 ended in a cloud of dust. Back with Mark and Alex at the front then of this sprint. Di Giannantonio just cannot find a way through on Quartararo. This is a part of the circuit where you'll think that Quartararo probably has the upper hand. Di Giannantonio though just getting sick of seeing that Yamaha's rear tyre, and now he has the inside line as they climb up through turns 8 and 9. You have to take your hat off though to Fabio Quartararo to defend for as long as he did against this armada of Ducatis. Top job by a top rider.
Yeah, whatever happened to Marc Marquez on that last lap, it dropped him back into the 203s as the 2 Fabios nearly run into each other there as Quartararo closes on Di Giannantonio. Marc Marquez was the slowest of the leading 3 last time around on a 203.287. Alex Marquez has been able to get within half a second. Catching Marc Marquez is one thing, but passing him around Austin is quite another.
Yeah, and this has been anything but routine so far. For Mark, having had the massive scare coming through turn 18 at the end of what was a pulsating first lap here in this sprint. It's an early bad for the premature end, and it's a bit of a crestfallen Joan Mir. Another big wasted opportunity goes begging for the Spanish rider. Towards the back end of the point scoring places, Acosta 7th ahead of Vinales and Marini. So Luca Marini doing an excellent job, having started 7th. Back at the front. Sound familiar, anybody? Mark versus Alex in MotoGP 2025. They power now through turn 19. We're about to complete lap 6 of 10. Well into the second half then of this COTA sprint. Let's just check the gap between 93 and 73. Mark Lee still able to keep himself in those sort of mid to high 202s. Alex Marquez might be grateful of a bit of a buffer here because Pecco Bagnaia in 3rd place on that last lap was pretty much 0.3 of a second faster than Alex directly ahead of him. Alex though does have that buffer just under 1.4 seconds.
Yeah, clearly a mistake on the lap before the one they just completed, because Marc Marquez straight back into those 202s, having done that 203.2 on the previous lap. Well, it was clear to see where Bagnaia's sprint was lost. As good as his first lap was, he lost way too much ground, didn't he, on laps 2 and 3, because since that point, since he got clear of Quartararo, Bagnaia's had similar pace to the Marquez brothers ahead of him, but unfortunately for Pecco, he's 2 seconds adrift of the lead. As Di Giannantonio now trades some VR46 paint with Morbidelli.
That was tight. There was millimetres, maybe less, between the 2 VR46 Ducati riders, and coming through 10 down the hill, blind entry, 4th gear, Di Giannantonio. Well, Morbidelli lost all his momentum there, did he, coming through 9 and 10, having got a little bit of a tap from his teammate Di Giannantonio. That is why Quartararo has been able to sneak on through, back up into 5th place. Morbidelli then now trying to immediately respond. He goes side by side in the braking zone with Quartararo, easy as you like. That is just all about the horsepower differential between the Duke and the Yam.
Fabio Quartararo, as Di Giannantonio now runs wide, having got the hard work done. Whoa! As we see someone else go back a bit to Quartararo coming through. He's just taking every opportunity he can get here.
Well, basically, he was coming through regardless there. A push and a barge on Frankie Moore.
Waduh, lag dia bang. Waduh. bang, nge-lag dia bang. Sorry. Kesalahan teknis. Kenapa nih? Ya. Sorry ya bang.
For Fabio Di Antonio, because if he had not had that real poor first lap, he was going to be certainly racing Bagnaia for the podium, maybe a little bit better. Maverick Vinales has entered the pits on the Tech 3 KTM.
It's going well.
Frustration that for our...
Iklan pula lagi dah. Sempat-sempatnya iklan.
Brinton Grand Prix winner here last year. He was having a pretty strong ride. Inside the points was the Top Gun. No top points though today for Maverick.
Pedro Acosta will be thinking, hey, Fabio and Frankie, you boys keep this up because I'm catching you at a vast rate of knots. Acosta did 2:03.6 last time around. That was a full second quicker than the VR46 Ducatis, who of course had Quartararo in the middle of them. Here comes Bezzecchi looking to try and claw himself into the points. If he stays there ahead of Brad Binder, that would be a World Championship point.
Looks like this sprint might be over for the first time. Marquez established a lead of over a second over Alex. Is that done and dusted? Is that game over? Are we talking 5 from 5? High fives all round in Texas potentially. That's not stopping here. Bezzecchi getting in way too hot there into 12. Not only has he lost the place, he just gained from Brad Binder, but Ayagura the rookie sweeps on through, and once again Agura now top Aprilia contender.
Yeah, Alex Marquez I think just going to batten down the hatches here and take the 9 points. I'm sure he's getting a little bit fed up of second place, but given the form Marquez is in, that's about as good as you can hope for at the moment. Alex, he's got a second and a quarter back to Bagnaia, 2 laps to go when they cross the line, so assuming he doesn't make any further mistakes, Alex should be safe.
Marco Bezzecchi was just praying that Aprilia was going to stop into turn 12. He runs wide. Over the line we go then. 2 laps to go, just over 10 kilometres remaining of this sprint, which has had its dramas. It has had its big moments for Marc Marquez. It hasn't been as easy as he's making it look right now, because he's just in cruise control. He started the last lap 8/10 clear of Alex. He's taken 6/10 on that lap 8 of 10. And now it just looks like it's going to be a continuation of this dream start in red. The Sprint and Grand Prix winner in Thailand, the Sprint and Grand Prix winner in Termas, and he's going to be the Sprint winner here surely in Texas, barring any late disasters. On board with Alex, who once again has fought a good fight. He's been the only rider really to give his brother any kind of serious headaches in this sprint, but once again he's going to fall just that little bit short.
What we have seen though today is that when he feels strong enough, there is absolutely no concerns from Pecco Bagnaia about sending an uppercut the way of Marquez, because we saw a couple of them on the first lap as Bezzecchi tries to regain his position as top of Aprilia. Once again he goes in hot, and Ayagura goes back through. Bagnaia I think will take plenty from this sprint this afternoon, although it is still third place. His pace since around lap 3 or 4 has been pretty similar to the Marquez brothers ahead of him. Plenty to work on still for Bagnaia, but perhaps a step in the right direction for him.
Yeah, plenty at stake in terms of bragging rights at Pertamina VR46 Racing, because the Gian Antonio and Morbidelli are still slugging it out for 4th spot. Between those two over the start of this lap 9 was just under 3 tenths of a second.
Jadi urutannya masih tetap sama di urutan ini.
I'm not going to be second fiddle in Aprilia once again. Helicopter shot then picks up Marc versus Alex. Marc Marquez, surely now he's not going to fluff his lines this late on. He comes through turn 20 on this lap 9 of 10. He is now just 5.5 kilometres away from win number 5 in 2025.
His lead was cut in half though on that penultimate lap. I'm sure he's fully under control here, he knows what he's doing, but a lead that was 1.4 seconds is now down to 7/10 of a second as we cut back to look at the battle for the final point. If Marc Marquez is stage managing this, he better not lose too much more time, because Alex is closing quickly.
Yeah, and Alex will be ready to pounce if there is any late drama coming the way of Marc. You can't really see that happening as we move back to this battle towards the back end of the point scoring places. Good battle as well, isn't it? Binder, Agura and Bezzecchi. fair play to Ayagura, because in the rain conditions yesterday morning, given his lack of experience on an RSGP in wet weather conditions, he was all at sea. He was really struggling. In fact, he was absolutely nowhere. Just could not cut any kind of fast lap in the mixed conditions yesterday afternoon as well, but it could be potentially salvaging a point scoring finish here. More kudos to the rookie.
He's certainly a fast learner, isn't he, Ayagura? He's made a huge step forward from where he was yesterday. Down the back straight for the final time then. The gap remains around 6-7 tenths of a second. This is Marc Marquez just managing himself to the end of this sprint. He's led from pretty much the end of the first lap, although he didn't lead for all of that hugely dramatic first lap. He's now around about half a lap away from continuing his unbeaten start to 2025.
Yeah, can't wait to hear his thoughts on that huge scare going through turn 18 at the end of that first lap. We ride on board there with Marquez. He just checks to his left there, looks at the big screen, just making sure that he's not going to give any late sniff to
juara sprint race seri ketiga Amerika Serikat. Kita akan saksikan urutannya masih tetap sama di seri-seri sebelumnya, guys. Siapakah dia? Yes, Marquez, Marquez, dan juga Piku Baknaya. Urutannya masih sama, guys. Tidak ada perubahan dari 3 seri sebelumnya, 2 seri sebelumnya. Oh my god. Congratulations. Oke, mantap. Sudah selesai, guys. Sudah selesai. Sprint race-nya sudah selesai. Boleh lanjutkan untuk sahur yang menunaikan ibadah puasa ya, sahur. Oke, guys, jadi buat teman-temanku yang di mid ya, buat teman-teman yang di mid, sprint race sudah selesai. Boleh lanjut sahur untuk yang menunaikan ibadah puasa, karena ini sahur yang terakhir ya, guys. Puasa yang terakhir di musim di tahun 2025. Oke, yes. Terima kasih yang sudah subscribe dan juga like ya, teman-teman sekalian. Makasih banyak atas dukungannya. Terima kasih semua atas bantuannya, guys, semuanya. Makasih banyak yang sudah dukung dan bergabung. Bang Nelayan, aduh, ini Bang Nelayan gimana nih cara balasnya nih? Bang Nelayan tadi telat masuknya, Bang. Sudah selesai, Bang, race-nya, Bang. Race-nya udah telat, udah habis, selesai. Makin menambah lagi poinnya, guys. Poin-poin dari apa nih, dari Okay. Thank you, guys, semuanya, teman-teman. Ya teman-teman semuanya, thank you yang sudah bergabung dan juga sudah ikut serta dalam live ini ya, channel ini. Terima kasih banyak yang sudah bergabung. Mohon maaf atas kekurangan ataupun ketidaklayakan ya, atau ada yang kurang dipahami. Saya mohon maaf jika tidak banyak bisa membantu. Dan ini hanya untuk biar teman-teman sekalian bisa nonton bareng, tidak ketinggalan seri-seri MotoGP ya. Dan ingat buat sahabat-sahabat Viewpoint, besok, tepatnya besok terakhir, kita habis nonton MotoGP, siaran utamanya di MotoGP. Baru paginya kita merayakan sholat Id ya, Lebaran. Sekali lagi besok kita jumpa lagi teman-teman. Sebelum saya mengakhiri kelas ini, mengakhiri forum ini, boleh coba follow dulu IG saya yang di atas ini dan langsung DM teman-teman. Besok linknya saya akan bagikan yang terbaru. Dan juga boleh langsung komen aja guys sebelum masuk, karena besok dini hari jam 3, itu jam 3 dini hari akan race utama di Amerika ya. Ini karena masih sprint race, besok di kelas regular utamanya di kelas MotoGP. Oke guys, selamat menunaikan ibadah puasa dan juga selamat sahur. Ibadah yang semuanya, mohon maaf lahir dan batin ya, izin semuanya kalau ada salah paham. Dan terima kasih yang sudah subscribe dan juga like teman-teman sekalian. Makasih banyak, itu dukungan dari teman-teman sekalian. Thank you. Sama-sama abangku. Besok kita live lagi bang. Siap.
Much admirers across the world as Marc Marquez. It's easy to see why with the pyrotechnics we saw from him today as the winning motorcycles are now wheeled out onto the podium. Quite a different vibe from the sprint podiums that we're used to. I'm certainly not going to complain about it.
Myself and Lewis joining in here in the commentary box, having a little bop in the booth here, just on the exit of the final corner. And the photographers braced and ready for the photos, which will be dominating social media all the way around the world very, very soon, as your top three at the end of the 10-lap sprint here in Texas are taking the adulation of the American crowd. Ducati locking out yet another podium. How many times have we said that over the last couple of years? Great reception then for the number 93, who strikes gold once again in Texas.
So Pecco Bagnaia has to settle for another third place in 2025. That is 4 out of 5 for him to go with the fourth place in the race in Argentina. And the riders, they're going to come over to the front, are they? And perhaps take a selfie with the many American fans who have made this such a memorable event, even to this point. Before we put the medals around their necks, we'll hear from the top three, starting with Pecco Bagnaia with Jack.
Pecco, congratulations, back onto the podium again, and after an electric opening lap, how good it was to see you back up there at the front, giving it everything. What were the emotions like during that fight?
I'm happy for the result because I was improving lap by lap. I needed just too much laps to be ready and competitive, but the first laps were nice. I enjoyed a lot the battle, and tomorrow we'll try to do the same start, but maybe the first laps be more competitive.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, great to see Pecco Bagnaia back on the podium. You can't keep a good rider down for too long. This is a replay of an utterly astonishing start. Just keep an eye on the right-hand side of your picture. Bagnaia firing away from 6th place on the factory Ducati. Immediately, he blitzes by Acosta and Morbidelli. And then on the inside of Marquez, who didn't get away poorly at all, did he?
Yeah,
on the factory Ducati.
That.
There they go then, side by side as they drop down the hill through turn 2. What a first lap this was.
Watch this move right at the inside into turn 3 on Marquez. When Marquez saw the grid and saw that Bagnaia was on the back of the second row, he would not have expected his teammate to come up the inside of him twice in the first 3 corners.
Yeah, amazing. Second place then, once again for Alex Marquez. He fought another great fight. Let's hear his thoughts with Jack.
Alex, another brilliant ride, second again, but to have been in the mix in that electric opening lap, just how pleased are you? A place you don't normally like to be here on the podium again.
Really happy, honestly speaking, to be second here.
Kenapa ada yang baru gabung, Bang? Udah selesai. Kok baru gabung, teman-teman? Nih.
Just how close was that big moment on the opening lap?
Too close. I mean, the track condition changed a lot with that warm temperature. On the first lap I was pushing in a normal way like this morning, but suddenly I realized that the grip of the track was worse. Was super close, but okay, it was some nice fight there against Pecco and Alex. But in the end, when I put my rhythm, I tried to control the gap. I did another mistake, but then I push again. So yeah, for tomorrow we need to work a bit there on that rear contact. But apart that, the bike is working super good.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
A bike that is working super good, with a rider on top of it twisting the throttle who is working super good as well. It is proving right now to be an unbeatable combination in 2025. Marc Marquez on a factory Ducati. Just look how big that moment was. Briefly look, he drops back down to 3rd place. Now, ordinary riders will be just trying to think, I just need 2 or 3 corners now just to regroup, regain the composure after this massive scare going through turn 18. But we're talking about Marc Marquez, who at the very next corner dive bombed both Alex Marquez and Pecco Bagnaia. He had to work hard for it, he had to sweat for it, but once again, he's gone for gold and got it.
And he's about to put yet another gold medal around his neck as a result. A 4th sprint win, a 3rd of the year for Marc Marquez. I think he's going to be running out of room for all of these medals and trophies, the way his 2025 season has started. So we'll start with Pecco Bagnaia. 3rd place, 3rd in the championship, and 36 points now behind Marc Marquez. But you kind of feel as if today's sprint was a step in the right direction for Pecco Bagnaia, but still, he has a lot of ground to make up yet before he's on terms with his teammate. But on balance, a positive day for Pecco. 2nd place, once again, for Alex Marquez. His results this year read 2nd, 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 and 2nd. Silver once again for the man in blue and silver. But Marc Marquez, even with all of the drama, remains unbeaten in 2025. As Robert Dingman, representative of the FIM, will put the gold medal around his neck. He might not have reclaimed his crown as the King of Kota yet. That may come tomorrow. But Sprint Glory, stateside, goes to the 93.
Oke guys, terima kasih banyak yang sudah gabung dan yang udah pantengin ya channel Viewpoint. Terima kasih guys. Kita jumpa lagi besok. Ingat, live di seri utama di MotoGP ya, dini hari, dan habis itu kita langsung sholat Id yang merayakan Idul Fitri ya guys. Merayakan Idul Fitri, boleh sholat Id hari raya. Kita jumpa besok, pas besok dini hari jam 3 kalau nggak salah itu ya, di sahur terakhir kita guys, sahur terakhir kita. Oke guys, terima kasih semuanya, makasih banyak guys semuanya. Salam Viewpoint, sahabat-sahabat semuanya, salam, makasih banyak, kita jumpa besok ya.